Dear students of class 9A and 9B, in this lesson, the Reformation, the following points I shall teach you. Please look at it. John Calvin, Calvinism, Consistory, English Reformation, Anglican Church. These are the points I shall teach you. First, John Calvin. Who was John Calvin? John Calvin was a French reformer. John Calvin was a political reformer of France. John Calvin declined, ignored, denounced, criticized the authority of the Pope, and he was against their practice. All kinds of, irrational things which were done, which were followed, which were adopted by the church, he was against it. He vehemently condemned the authority of the church and its head Pope. And he also attracted millions of people by explaining complicated things in a easiest form, because he was a good spokesman. He always tried to deliver his speech with various examples, by giving examples in a very simplest form, so that people must understand easily and can become his followers, can become his supporters. So what he had done helped him to gain popularity throughout France and throughout the world also. It is due to his efforts. So many people became his followers. His beliefs, what he believed, his beliefs are known as Calvinism. Calvinism, the theory by which he gained popularity and made huge followers. And the beliefs, he tried to make it understand among the people. These beliefs also are known as Calvinism. He is famous for his literary works because he was also a good writer, critic, wrote so many letters, but unfortunately the letters, what he wrote once, these letters, a number of letters, these letters unfortunately everything in unfortunately these letters were not published, but he wrote enormous letters regarding his views and regarding his beliefs. He explained it in a very simplest form and shortest form in his letters for his followers. But unfortunately, these letters were not published. Anyway, he distated any form of colorful festivities and rejected the authority of the Pope. It is due to that reason Calvin was exiled from Geneva, and ultimately, once again, it is due to his colleagues, it is due to the efforts of his followers, he once again was called to come back, because his followers won the election to the Geneva City Council, and hence he was invited back to the city. And on his return in the year 1541, Calvin began his program of reform. He established four categories of offices based on biblical injunctions. The name of these offices are Minister of the Word, Doctors, Elders, and Diacons. And this was called the consistory. Consistory is a governing body of elected officials. it had to maintain, consistory had to maintain order among the church's officers and members in order to make them free of all kinds of dishonesties, this governing body, elected officials, consistory works steadily in order to maintain all orders among the church's officers and church's, members. Now, English Reformation. What is English Reformation? England broke away from the authority of the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church. This is known as English Reformation. The question is, why did England break away? England broke away from the authority of the Church and Roman Catholic Church. Why? Because it condemned wrong practices of the Catholic Church and its head Pope in the 16th century, led to the Church in England, and ultimately England broke away from the authority of the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church, and this is known as English Reformation. The English Reformation was more and more of a political than a theological one, theological dispute. King Henry VIII of England, English King Henry VIII, had confrontations with the Pope over the latter's interference in the affairs of Britain, because Britain did not want to allow Pope and its head, our Roman Catholic Church, to discuss all the matters and to explain all these things as per the requirement of themselves. But England wanted to learn unknown things. England wanted to see correct order of correct practices and positivity, not negativity. But this wrong practice forced England to break away from the authority of the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church, and hence that incident, English Reformation, took place. English Reformation was more political than a theological dispute, and it is due to the effort of King Henry VIII that incident took place. And ultimately, the split from Rome made the English monarch head of the English Church and led to the establishment of the Church of England called Anglican Church. Anglican Church. It also led to the establishment of the Church of England called Anglican Church because of the English Reformation, because of the contributions of English King Henry VIII. It is due to the effort of Henry VIII, Britain decided to break away from the Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church, and from the control of the Pope of the Church, and established a church of their own country, and this church is known as the Church of England. And at the same time, this Church of England also was called the Anglican Church. The Anglican Church. And another point is that the role of England and followers of the English Reformation is very important. The role of England and its followers is very important. Why? Because they followed the ideals, they followed the principles and motto of German monk Martin Luther. German monk Martin Luther and his followers, and at last Zwingli, who dedicated his life while fighting against his enemies in the battlefield, sacrificed his life, was killed. But what he left? He left a good impression throughout the world, an image throughout the world that only one word he left, that was protest, reformation, against the authority of the church, against the Pope, and it was followed by other followers of Zwingli. Later on, another one became very much prominent. He was Calvin, about whom today I am teaching, I am explaining all the points. This very personality, Calvin, belonged to France. He also was attracted by the ideals and motto of Zwingli, and he also decided to protect the uneducated, uncultural persons of the world who were in the dark, in order to protect them, in order to make sure their rights. This very personality, Calvin, vehemently condemned the authority of the church and the papacy. And ultimately, John Calvin also introduced his own concept, Calvinism. All the followers of John Calvin, they also decided to reform the structure of the church, and as a result of it, Calvin was exiled from Geneva. But because of his colleagues and their contributions, because of the election, his supporters won, and ultimately he was invited back to the city Geneva. And upon his return, Calvin established 4 categories of his offices based on biblical injunctions: ministers of the word, doctors, elders, and the deacons. This was called collectively consistory. Consistory means a governing body, and of elected officials. It had to maintain all the orders and all the orders and proper discipline among its members and officers. Now, English Reformation, as I discussed earlier, English Reformation, it is due to England, who broke away from the authority of the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church and established its own church in England, the Church of England, during 16th century, and led to the establishment of the Church of England, and new concept, new movement, new reformation. The name of this reformation is known as English Reformation, since it was started from England. It was due to the effort of Henry VIII. England broke away from the authority of the Church, Pope, Roman Catholic Church, and established a new church, the Church of England. This establishment of a new church in England is known as the Anglican Church. Up to this, my dear students. Thank you.